I launched events. I acquired events. I started new events. I started this event, Complex Con, which is kind of like Comic-Con for sneakerheads.
I remember. I didn't know that was yours.
Yeah, so I did that all through the infrastructure and the capital of the new company. So I basically stayed there and then climbed the corporate ladder. I started as the general manager of Agenda. Then I became the group vice president, the SVP, started working on corp dev and learning the inner workings of a publicly traded company. So I basically got my business MBA over the next 5 years, working inside their company, learning and really learning how companies work, really learning. And I think I got more dangerous, meaning in a good way, like effective at being an actual business leader and learning how to work, not for myself in a little dictatorship, but had to report up to someone. I had to answer to someone, and I had to lead large teams down, had to just learn the whole skill set, right? So that was a really eye-opening and a valuable experience for me. And I did some fun stuff like launch Complex Con.
Yeah, that's relatable. I got the same kind of experience when I worked at the studios.
Yeah.
It was a big boy job, and I had
the big boy job, yeah.
Big budget, and I was accountable, for a lot of money. So that makes sense. That resonates with me.
I also discovered working at a big company that my style, my lack of traditional training was a value, because I was almost like entrepreneur in residence.
Yeah.
That all the people that worked there for 20 years, and they started in the sales position, and they worked their way up over 20 years of being. They had a very regimented way of thinking. And my coloring outside the lines, because I didn't know the rules and the playbook and the politics, I just did shit. And they were like, "Whoa, you're just gonna do that?" And they worked. They're like shocked, but then they loved me for it, right? So it was a good learning, and also learning that my wild style was also an asset in corporate America versus a detriment to a certain extent.
Yeah, I love that. I think that sort of guerrilla mentality, just like do whatever it takes to get it done.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's how we beat the British and won the Revolutionary War, they tell me. But it makes sense. And I can also relate with that, right? Because having worked on the client side of a big corporation, I worked in that, monolith tower there, off the 101 freeway, if you know where the Universal NBC Tower is. I was on the 15th floor, and then on the 32nd floor. It's super corporate in structure. But when I started my own company, it was like all bets are off. There's no more rules. We make the rules. We break the rules. We're the hero, but also we're at fault. And I wondered, looking back on those days, how I spent so much time just like in meetings about meetings, and thinking it's like how do you get shit done? Like when you're working for yourself, like every minute counts, and you're super efficient, and you're just like
you're doing shit.
You're doing it, yeah, because you got to get it done to get the next thing done, to move the rock up the hill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that.
All companies are better if people just did shit.
Yes. So what do you think gets people stuck, whether they're working for themselves or on the corporate side? What prevents us from doing cool shit?
It all depends on the person. I would say, and I hate to lump anyone in. There's always exceptions to the rule. There's always that person that's super effective in corporate America or a super scrappy entrepreneur. But let's just lump majority of people in business into just the mass majority of how they go through a system. They went to school, they colored inside the lines, they went to college, they learned their degree, then they got in a job, just like the people I described. And none of them are bad people, and none of them are not smart people, but they subscribe to the path, the common path.
Yeah.
You start in X role, and then you work your way up, and you go from manager to senior manager to director to and there's like these little boxes that the world puts you in,
status quo,
and the hierarchy systems that we all subscribe to. And it's like, oh, this intern's not allowed to walk into the meeting and tell the CEO X, right?
Yeah.
And like, the people that are really hyper successful, learn that they can just, I hate to use color outside the lines, it's such an overused analogy, but like literally the people just break the rules and think for themselves and don't subscribe to that and are willing to lose that job or have people be mad at them are the most successful. It's like Steve Jobs has a pretty powerful quote somewhere when he's like, when you realize you can poke life and like, I forget the exact words he used, and you manipulate it and it'll change around you. The second you realize that, opposed to just living inside of it, that's when you become really successful and you have that level of awareness. So somehow, because I didn't come from that system, I was able to do that. But I think most people get caught in the system, from the matrix, if you will, right? And I think most people are scared to break the wall of the rules or the way of being.
Yeah, I heard the saying, it's like, the most dangerous set of words is, we've always done it like this.
Yeah.
And if it's working, great, but like usually there's a better way to do it.
Yeah.
more efficient, updated, whatever. So
It has to do with the financial system as well. Like, you don't want to break the rules here because then you can't pay your rent, your credit card bill, your car bill, da da da. So because you're running on the financial hamster wheel, and most people, don't have a significant reserve of savings or a cushion, they don't want to rock the boat over here because they can't afford to rock the boat here. So like most of the time when I was breaking all those rules, I was living in my parents' house. Living in my parents' house, I was 23 years old. So in a way, that financial stability of living at home allowed me to just try and do shit, So I think that's most people now are back living in their parents' house, so they should try more things.
yeah, good advice. Okay, so then bring us up to speed. So what happened then?
So I stayed there. I had a 3-year earnout. An earnout, for those of you guys who know, it's like company buys your business. They buy 85% up front. And they agree to pay you more on the back end to basically keep you there and keep continuity. So I actually stayed for 5 years.
Okay.
2 years past the time because I enjoyed what I was doing so much. I was learning so much.
You're growing the business, I'm sure.
Growing the business. I grew 80% the first year I was there. The Complex Con launch was a huge thing for me. Just like thing I'm most passionate about. I started this thing called The Merge, which is kind of like a TED Talk for like creative industry. You might have gone to one of those. So I was having a great time. And what I did that. And then eventually I said, all right, 5 years, 2 years past the mark that I was supposed to stay. I've done my duty here. I was ready to try something new. And I actually went out and started a new business with a friend of mine. And I was going to go and work on that, which was, I saw the cannabis industry really, legalization, all this stuff. So we started the first really cool B2B trade show for cannabis called Hall of Flowers in 2017, and got that off the ground with another friend of mine from the trade show industry. And I was going to go work on that. Same year, I partnered with a couple friends and backed them financially and with my resources, and we started a hot sauce company called Truff.
Cool.
Which some of you guys may know. My friends Nick and Nick are co-CEOs of that and really visionaries behind it. And both those businesses were primed, and I was ready to work on that and some other stuff. And it was 2017 in ComplexCon, and I was thinking about those. And that was honestly the direction I was going in. So these two new entities, I was ready to reel off this, maybe just become a consultant, figure out what my next thing was going to be.
Yeah, you're incubating new ideas.
Yeah, and those were been going. And Mark Echo, who's the founder of Complex Media, who I did prolific entrepreneur in his own right, probably my main person that I look up to.
Yeah, big deal.
2017 September, he calls me. He says, "Hey, will you meet with Jimmy Iovine?"
Okay.
And I said, "Of course." I just watched the Defiant Ones documentary on HBO. Like, literally, I just learned so much about it. And I said, "Of course." I didn't know what it was about. And he sets me up at this meeting, and I show up at this office, and he's at the CEO of Apple Music at the time, and he's got this crazy office in Culver City, the Apple Beats headquarters. And I walk in, and long story short, he essentially says, we're working on QVC meets Comic-Con. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Tell me more. And we have this meeting that I think is kind of uneventful, but I understood the core of what he was talking about. And his son, Jamie, who's now my partner now, had come up with this idea, and they were incubating it, working on it. At the time, it was called Meltdown. It was a comic book store in Hollywood. And they wanted to create QVC for millennial Gen Z audience, right? And I went home that night, and I had no intention of working there, but he didn't necessarily was trying to hire me. But I went home that night, and I drew up a business plan for him.
Okay.
And I sent it to him at 3 a.m, and I said, "Thanks for the time. I heard your rough idea, and I said, I think this is what you were trying to say to me, but articulated in a business plan, because I speak deck for whatever reason."
Yeah.
And I didn't hear back from him for, I don't know, 2-3 weeks. I was like, I guess he didn't like me. And I didn't feel that he liked me at that meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And
wait, so you had no follow-up between that time? You just
no follow-up. I spent like all night working on this deck.
Yeah.
And just nothing. It just, echoes.
You feel like a send into the abyss.
I went back, ran the ComplexCon again, and I was fancying on resigning at the beginning of the new year.
Yeah. I got hot sauce. I got other things going.
Yeah, I got things going, and, I was doing all right. And this business manager calls me. And he goes, "Hey, look, we never heard back from you." And I said, "Well, I sent Jimmy an email." By the way, Jimmy's email address was jimmy@apple.com.
Yeah.
It's a great email address. He told me the email address we were walking out, like I could remember it. And I was like, I just emailed jimmy@apple.com this email. And I never heard back. And I thought maybe he never got it, or he was joking about the email address. And the business manager goes, "Oh, we never heard back from you. Like, what happened?" And I said, "Oh, I sent Jimmy this deck." He goes, "Oh, Jimmy doesn't check his emails." And he goes, "Send it to me." I sent it to him, and then they call me back within one day. They go, "This is amazing. Can you come back in and meet with us?" And they're like, "Oh, he never got the email. He doesn't look at his emails." And we have this amazing meeting, and they're like, "Will you help us find a CEO for this business?" And I started introducing them to people, and will you consult with us? And I was still doing the thing. And eventually they're like, "Well, why don't you do it?" Yeah. I'm like, "Well," I was coming up with reasons. So I got this thing. I just started this other company. I'm working on this events company. I'm still running this ComplexCon thing. And I just got to know these guys, and then I realized it's one of those things when you're offered a ride on a rocket ship, you say yes.
Yeah, you feel it.
Yeah, you say yes, right? And I really just mustered up the strength to go in to read exhibitions where they've been great to me, and I built an amazing thing, and I spent, you know, it was a 15-year mark exactly of when I started Agenda to the time I left, right? And on the eve of the 15th anniversary, I said, I quit. I'm retiring from the trade show business, and I decided to go work on incubating this new company, which is now called Network, which is a live stream video shopping platform where I'm CEO today. We've been doing it for almost 5 years now, and that's what I've been spending the majority of my energy working on.